Hey there, and welcome back to yet another one of my mushroom projects. Over here I have a box, or rather two boxes, and it's filled with wood shavings that are almost completely colonized with the oyster mushroom mycelium. Now, a few weeks ago I've inoculated the wood shavings with the mycelium or with the grain spawn. I made an entire short on that. I will link it in the description below. But the short story is that I want to grow some oyster mushrooms from a straw bale or a mesh tower filled with straw. However, I only had 2 bags of oyster mushroom grain spawn, and I thought that wouldn't be enough to inoculate the entire straw bale. So my idea was to create sort of an in-between phase by inoculating the wood shavings, and once they were fully colonized, I would then take the box to the garden, and then I would break apart the mycelium and mix it up with the straw. And I think that day is today. Now, the reason I think that these wood shavings are almost fully colonized is that I've noticed there's some pinning going on. And pinning is basically when the mycelium has enough energy to start producing mushrooms, and you see basically tiny miniature versions of the mushroom popping up. Over here I have the large mesh that I've also used on my corner trellises. As you can see, I still have plenty enough of it, and I'm going to use this to create the tower that will hold the straw. All right, let's go to the garden. So we are at the back end of my garden behind the dome, and I think this is the best spot for my new little experiment, because this is pretty much the only place in my garden with a little bit of shade left. That is not really saying a lot because my garden is basically in full sun all day. Anyway, I'm going to construct the cylinder first. Maybe I need to stabilize it, but I'm hoping that the weight of the straw will keep it in place. And yeah, after that I'm going to fill it up. Alright, that was pretty straightforward. I just made a big cylinder with the mesh, much like I did with the air column of the bioreactor. And I wrapped the ends of the mesh around itself so it will stay together. This will not go anywhere. So now it looks pretty stable when I put it in its final location, so I'm going to take my chances, especially when the straw is in there. I think the whole weight will keep it in its place. Speaking of which, I have a big bag of straw over here that I'm going to use to fill up the cylinder. Now, preferably you want to hydrate your straw 12 to 24 hours before you're going to use it as a substrate for your mycelium, because as we all know, mushrooms like damp and humid conditions. Now, I thought it would be a smart idea to water the straw while it's in its bag so that it could hydrate like that, and I didn't need to get another tub or something. But as you might have guessed, the bag had some holes in it and most of the water leaked out. However, given the weight of the bag, I'd say there's still some water in there, so the straw is probably not completely dry. However, I still am going to water every layer of straw that I'm going to put in the cylinder whilst I'm building it up. Alright, this is a little bit messy. However, I am noticing that the straw is actually still pretty moist, so even though your bag has holes in it, I think it's a solid strategy to water it in the bag first, because yeah, it's pretty moist. Alright, so that is the mushroom tower constructed and done. It's fairly simple, fairly straightforward, also pretty messy, but I guess that's to be expected when you're working with straw. Now, the straw has not been pasteurized or sterilized whatsoever, so I know I'm taking a risk here. However, since the mycelium of the oyster mushroom is a pretty aggressive colonizer, I'm again taking my chances here, and I think it'll work out. So all I need to do now is to keep it well watered, much like my other mushroom projects, and I'm hoping to see some mushrooms pop up within a few months or maybe even a few weeks. So as you can see, this is yet another way how you can grow mushrooms in your garden, especially if you don't have a lot of space. And out of the 3 mushroom projects currently in my garden, I think this one will give me the first harvest, but we'll see. And of course, by that time, I will make a video about that harvest. Now, if you want to see how I inoculated the wood chips in the box, then do watch the short that I made about it. I will put the link in the description below. And if you're interested in my 2 other mushroom projects in the garden, then you can learn more about growing mushrooms on pathways over here and growing mushrooms on logs over here.